All right, and I can see Joshua's joined us too, so welcome. So I think we'll get started. Just really a warm welcome to anyone tuning in or watching the recording afterwards. My name's Liam. I'm the course director for our 12-week Climate Change Learning for Action course. So hopefully I'm well placed to answer any questions you have, or at least know where to direct you if it's something I'm not working on directly myself. And I'm grateful to some of our current fellows, Sylvia and Manuel, and I'm hoping Aman is about to join us as well, who will be able to give a bit of a perspective from the fellows. Although I myself was a fellow last year when the course first launched. I was one of the first participants at the beginning when Terra first started. And I then was invited to become an instructor as well. And I worked as an instructor for a couple of cohorts, and now I've taken over the more overall management of the course. So I've seen all the different perspectives, although it's been a while since I was on the other end. So thanks again, Sylvia and Manuel, for coming. Let me just start by saying Terra.do is a totally online organization. We launched last year at the very beginning, or just before the pandemic, actually, the COVID-19 pandemic. And the mission is very much about helping people get to work on climate change. So, and that word work means both paid career type work, but anything else as well outside of that, volunteering, further education, community building, whatever it is. There's lots of stuff that needs to happen, and we've got lots to do when it comes to tackling climate change. So what we're really about is empowering people to learn and figure out what the problems are, what the solutions are, how we can work together on it, meet each other and connect and build a community where we can support each other and help each other find those perfect roles that we want in climate companies, or in climate work in non-climate companies, or whatever else it might be. And then the third part is just getting on and doing it, and figuring out how we make change happen wherever we are. And that mission comes from one of our founders, Anshuman, who was spending a long time thinking about climate and trying to figure out what he should be doing. And what he wanted was a course where he could, focus on it for 12 weeks, learn as much as he needs to, and figure out where to put his time and where to specialize. So in a sense, the course that we're talking about today, the 12-week course, originally came a little bit from what Anshuman felt like he needed before he started Terra. So that's a bit of the mission, and one of our overarching goals, very ambitious, is to, by 2030, have helped 100 million people get into climate work in some fashion, or get working or taking action on climate. And of course, we're not that, we know we're not going to train 100 million people through this course, but what we hope is that some of the people we train will enable and empower others, start companies, or make changes in existing companies, or in policies, or in activism that brings other people along as well. So a bit of a ripple effect. That's enough on Terra. I'll focus a bit more now on the course itself. As I said, it's a 12-week course. It's purely online, but it's very, very interactive. The whole premise is that you are not taking this course in a vacuum. It's not an online kind of Coursera, I'll just sign up and do the modules in my own time. It's very much kind of, let's get together in the moment and go on this journey together. So I like to think of the course as having kind of three key components. For me, at least, those were the experiences I took away, and I try and replicate for everyone else. One is the content itself, so the learning. It's a very, very broad, very kind of thorough syllabus on more or less anything you can think about to do with climate change and climate action. And there's opportunities to go deep on all of those, but you can pass through the whole course staying relatively shallow and getting a really kind of wide angle lens, wide view of everything. But the content is there to help you, and some people have talked about it as almost like an all-you-can-eat buffet. So there's lots of options, and you probably won't have time to eat it all, but getting a sense of that whole range helps people figure out or well, this is kind of where I think I want to be working, or I'm really interested in this sector. So you can then narrow down and go deeper a bit later. So the content is one. The second is the community, which I mentioned before, and which we always get very positive feedback about, how we're not just random fellow students going through this course, but we're actually working together in teams on team assignments. We're meeting each other. We're learning about everybody's different perspectives and histories and understandings from all over the world, with with fellows in tens of different countries. And that, for me, and I think for many people, gives people the energy and the boost to take those next steps, figure out that job. Maybe it's a connection to a job that you want. Maybe it's some advice. Maybe it's just someone to keep you accountable and help you keep making that progress. But the community is a really big factor. And the final thing I would say is confidence. And I think for me, having taken this course, it gave me the confidence to say, I might not have done a master's in climate policy or climate science, but I know what I'm talking about, and I know what's going on with all of these various different parts of the complex challenge. And even if I'm not an expert on any one of those things, I know who the experts are and I can connect with them. So that, for me, gave me the confidence to apply for all sorts of jobs that I might not have been comfortable going for before, and having those conversations in my everyday life and in my work life as well. So content, community, and confidence, I think, are some of the three key pillars. I'll just pause there in case there's any massive, any key questions or technical questions right now. I'll talk a bit more about what it feels like week to week in a moment, but I just thought I'd pause in case anyone wants to shout and say, I think I'm in the wrong meeting, or I don't know, anything like that. All right, cool. So week to week, what does it look like? We talk about having a weekly commitment of around 10 to 12 hours. And it's quite a lot, and not everybody manages to put that much time in, and that's understandable when people are working full time. Some people who are not working full time still struggle to put that much in, and other people somehow who are working full time somehow seem to put in 10, 15 hours every week. And it really depends on, I think what you take out is really dependent on what you put in. So what I would say is it's a great course if you can put in 8 to 10 hours. If you're going to struggle to do 6 hours a week, then you'll still have everything on the table to you, but you might not be able to make the most of that all-you-can-eat buffet, if you like. And the way it breaks down is there are 2 live events every week that we really strongly encourage people to come along to. One is the guest lectures, where we have experts come and talk live on Zoom to the cohort, and there's a chance for question and answer as well. And the second is a weekly lab group, which you have with a smaller group of students, maybe 20 to 25 of you, and an instructor there to help guide you through the classes that you're going through in your own time, open up discussions for some of the different challenging questions, and also to support your kind of personal development and your figuring out what your next steps are, helping you make sure that you're getting the most out of the course, basically. So that's the lab group. So that's usually on Tuesdays. Guest talks usually on Wednesdays. And then there's a bunch of other live events which are kind of optional. So one of them is the chance to go deeper into some of the classes and the content if you really want to pick something apart in a particular subject. One is the chance to meet some of our mentors, and I'll talk about our mentorship scheme in a moment, but they can come and do sort of really short introductions and Q&A. And another thing we've been doing is Fireside Chats, where they're very informal. Sometimes there's a guest speaker, and sometimes it's just whoever shows up talking about a particular topic that's maybe not covered so much in the classes, but is of interest. So lots of live events each week, but only those 2 that are kind of like you really ought to come to, and the rest are much more optional. Then, of course, there's the classes, which are completely asynchronous. They're online. You kind of scroll through them a bit like a slideshow, but there's interactive pieces, there's quizzes and videos and external links. And those, each class could take you sort of anywhere between 1 and 3 or 4 hours to get through, depending on how deep you go into those optional links. And there's 1 or 2 of those released every week. So over the 12 weeks, there's 20 classes, and they are, as I say, they're probably the bulk of the time that you're going to spend is going through those. But you can go through them at any time you like, and you know, we release them periodically throughout the weeks, but some people can't get through them all in that week, and maybe go through and catch up when we have these break moments as well in the course. Then we've got assignments, and there are 5 assignments at the moment in the course. 2 of those are team assignments, so a chance to collaborate with others around the world. And those are, at the moment, more balanced towards sort of your personal development and figuring out, well, what's your place in the climate challenge? You know, what are your skills? What are you good at? What are your next steps going to be? But some of them are as well are more content focused and more on the learning of the content. And of course, our instructors will read your assignments and provide feedback on those as well. They're not graded, so you don't actually get a score or anything. But if you do all the assignments, then you'll get a certificate at the end to say you completed the course. So that's nice. If that means anything to you, then that's hopefully that's nice. Trying to think what else. Oh yeah, I talked about mentorship. I mentioned mentorship before, so that's one of our highlights, I think, and a lot of people really get a lot out of this. So we have a collection of 150, maybe nearly 200 now, climate experts who have agreed to offer their time for free as a short-term mentor to our fellows. So you can sign up for a one-to-one conversation with them to help figure out what the next steps are or where you should be focusing. Huge range of geographies and a range of backgrounds and skills. And that sort of gets introduced towards the second half of the course and is extended beyond the end. So if you're still figuring things out in the final week, as Sylvia and Aman and Manuel might be, the mentorship scheme is open to them for another 3 months, and it would be to you as well after the course ends. So you can take your time, although the sooner the better in a sense, because you might want to meet them a second time and get their feedback on any changes you've made. I think I'm going to pause there because I've talked a lot. What I would like to do is pass it over to the 3 fellows who are here from the current cohort. Thanks again, Sylvia, Manuel, and Aman, for coming. And maybe we'll, talk about whatever you like. Maybe what made you join in the beginning, how the experience has been, and if any of you have interacted with mentors as well, it might be good just to mention how that's gone for you. So maybe we'll start with Manuel, then we can go to Sylvia and then Aman.
So good day, everyone. So it really has been a great experience. I initially heard about Terra through My Climate Journey, which is a podcast that has been very useful for me. Then I started listening to about 6 months ago, and on that podcast they actually interviewed the person that founded Terra, and he came from Google, and he has that vision, as Liam was mentioning, of trying to educate as many people on the climate. I'm a 30-year industry veteran of I basically have worked in different industries, in kind of like leadership roles. And I spent half my career in supply chain, with big companies like, Levi's, Gap, Pepsi, and then the other half, more in the financial service industry. But I wanted to do something that is much more impactful and where I can have something, that I can feel proud of in terms of trying to save the world, from what we're doing to it. So I heard about Terra, and I looked into it, immediately signed up, and it's been a great experience. I think one of the best, parts of it is the fact that you're exposed to people from all over the world. So there's about 120 people in our cohort, and we work in smaller groups of, 20 to 25 people. We basically, get together as a lab, on a weekly basis, and you're interacting with these folks. And as Liam mentioned, we've been doing, some assignments, where some of the assignments are individual, some are group assignments. And on my groups, I've had people from India, I've had people from Europe, people from here, from the US. So, and you get those different perspectives that, if you were just, within your little bubble here in the US, I live in LA, you wouldn't get exposed to those different perspectives. So it's been, I think that's been one of the best parts. Another key thing is that there's pretty much activities on a daily basis. So we have a lab session, once a week. But then there's also these fireside chats, and there's other sessions. So pretty much, every day I've been having a session. And for me, being on the West Coast in California, it's been perfect because my sessions are at 8 o'clock in the morning, or they're 8 to 9, or sometimes up to 9:30. So I start my day with, with my Terra sessions, and it really kind of like sets me up for having a great day. I am, still kind of like defining what my next steps are going to be. I want to, look for a new job, sometime towards the middle of next year. I as I mentioned, I'm in the financial services industry, so I work with H&R Block, so I'm going to start, my busy season right now with tax season coming up. So the next few months I'll be kind of like, nose down into my real, real job. But it's been a great experience. I highly recommend it to anyone. I have, had the opportunity to talking with a couple of different people. There's the official mentorship program that Liam mentioned, but as you go through sessions, some of the guest speakers also offer themselves up to have conversations with you. So I've had a couple different conversations with some of them, and it's really has been helpful. And even though I still don't know exactly where I'm going to be heading, I have 2 or 3 areas that I've identified as potential areas for opportunity. So back to you, Liam.
Brilliant. Thanks, Manuel. That's great. Let's hear from Sylvia.
Hey, everyone, and welcome. So a little bit about myself, just for background. I have 9 years of experience working in tech and product startups, nothing related to climate, at least in the past. And around like 1 year ago, I really started becoming interested in the climate world, wondering like what would it take like for me to enter that space, but I knew nothing, and I didn't know like a single person. And I thought probably I need to do a master, or I need to study the science to enter the space. And so I just started learning as much as I could. And what I realized is that I didn't need to do a master. I could combine my tech and product skills with the climate world, which I did. So I recently, like 1 month ago, while doing the Terra course, I joined a climate tech startup, and this is what I'm doing now. So I'm leading the product team at a climate tech startup. And I think like the things for me, like when I started my climate journey, I didn't start Terra right away. So I got to know Terra, but I was not sure, like, should I invest that much time and money on a course right from the beginning? So I started learning by myself. But I was learning a lot because there's a lot of like available knowledge. But I think one of the 3 things that I took from Terra was that the knowledge that I got here was a much more like systemic way. So it gave me like an overview of the system, what is the problem, what are the possible solutions, and just getting that mental structure helps you organize things, because it's such a complex world that sometimes it can be really overwhelming. And I think that's one of the main things that Terra gave me, is building that foundation to understand this complex system, and also help me navigate. So now when I read some climate news, I have a critical view on it because I have the right foundations. And before I just read it and I learned it, but I didn't have like a critical opinion. So I think that gave me that extra knowledge, and maybe like even confident that Liam was talking while reading like anything related to climate. The second thing I think, and just resonates what everyone is saying, is people and communities. So I think it's a great way to connect with like-minded people. They're like super talented people with diverse backgrounds, which I think it's awesome. Like I came from tech, but there's people that come from completely different worlds, which is really cool. Also, everyone is just nice in general, which is just good when you join a community, because communities can be scary. Like, okay, like I need to go there and present myself. I don't know anything about climate. Are people going to accept me? So this is something that you just feel like there's no judgment. It's just everyone here to learn together, and it's complex for everyone. It's not just for you. So that's just great. And then I think the final one, which I was really surprised, is there's a lot of good knowledge and content in the course, but there's also a lot of moments for personal reflection. And that really made me like grow a lot. And I think like comparing to other things where I need to learn fast, in this case, the climate is such a complex issue that can be really overwhelming, even emotional. Am I gonna like ever know this? Am I ever gonna find like the right solution, decide where to focus on? And during the course at Terra, there's a lot of moments that like through assignments or through talking with people, that it just makes you stop and ask questions like, okay, like, why are you feeling this? Or why, like, what do we want to do with that information? And just really make you questioning everything that you're learning. So I think that gives you like a lot of personal growth, at least for me. It just made me like find like a way to realize like where I want to go into the future and really reflect back, and sometimes even pause, which could be like a bit ironic, like why should you pause when you have so many things to learn? But it was actually on those moments that like this little spark came up, and I got like a lot of new ideas of things I could do in the future or things I could give back, which I think it was great. So yeah, I would strongly recommend to everyone. I think having some dedicated time is where I struggle the most, for sure. But it's totally worth it to find that time in your daily life, because you're going to take a lot out of it.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Sylvia. I appreciate your thoughts there. Aman, what's your takeaway from this course, and where did you start? What are you thinking now?
Thank you, Liam. Hey, everyone. My name is Aman. I'll just give a brief on my background as well. I currently work as a product engineer at an education nonprofit. And before that, I used to work as an ML engineer. So basically, I have this generalist engineering background. And so before the Terra course, I used to have like a lot of ideas about products or things I would like to build. But every time I would get stopped by this thought that, hey, but what about climate change? Like, what is the point of building any of this given that? So I was super pessimistic before the course. I thought, oh, everything will end in 10 years, so might as well just enjoy your life with whatever you have left, and there's no point doing anything. Right at that point in my life, I was also taking a break. So I was just thinking through everything that I care about and what do I want to do next. So thankfully, someone introduced me to Terra at that time. And when I saw the website for the first time, it resonated with me so strongly, because it has always been a barrier for me to think that the climate change space is so huge. If I have to do anything here, how will I ever understand the space without, say, going for a master's or an advanced degree, which I didn't want to pursue. So just getting to know, okay, there's this 12-week course where I could get a crash course on everything. That appealed to me very strongly right at the go. And I think as soon as I joined, when I started the course, the community part stood out right at the start, because in my everyday life, I don't find people around me, at least in India, who talk a lot about climate change, right? And even if I do, it tends to get laughed upon that, hey, there are many other problems to worry about here. Like, why are you thinking about climate change? So I didn't find enough people around me to talk about it, even though it was something I really cared about. So just finding a community and being around people who also care about the problem in the same way that I do was very important. And it made me, it sort of acknowledged my feelings, which I think were not acknowledged before. Then, so that again, number one being community, number two being the content. I think, as everyone else mentioned, so there is a lot of content out there, right? But the problem is, where do you begin? The fact that there is so much content is also a problem, because it can make you feel very overwhelmed. Where do you start off with? Like, what is the 80-20 here? essentially. So I think Terra's curation has been phenomenal. Like the fact that they have covered the climate change problem from so many different lenses has been one of the big takeaways for me. I always felt uncomfortable just thinking about climate change as a technological problem or as a technical problem, and learning through Terra has sort of reinforced that feeling that it is, like, as much as it is a technical problem, it is also a human problem, and it is a chance for us to fundamentally reshape how we live and our relationship with nature, with each other. So I think just having that uh, feeling reinforced and articulated in the way that Terra has done has made it very helpful for me. The number three is, as I said, I was super pessimistic before the course, right? So just feeling empowered because of the education that I was getting, feeling empowered by the community, and also the fact that I was only hearing stories of doom before the course, right? That, oh, everything is getting destroyed. But I was not hearing enough stories of hope, or I was not hearing stories of people working towards the problem. That was a big reason of my pessimism. But as I became a part of the community, I started listening to stories of hope. I started seeing people who were actually working towards the problem, who are also facing the same issues as I am, but they were still marching forward, doing what they can, right? So I think that converted my pessimism into optimism. And I think that's the biggest change one can bring, or anything can bring in one's life, right? To give them hope again and make them feel passionate again. So I think I am very grateful to Terra for that. And it has given me a confidence, I think, as Manuel as mentioned as well, that now I can be a part of conversations, I can critique, and even what Sylvia mentioned, I can read material on climate change, and I can actually understand what the words mean. I can distinguish fact from fiction, or misinformation, and I can have conversations in which I'm confident about what I'm speaking, versus having like a surface level conversation. And I think finally I now have so many ideas that I want to work on. Like I have this whole list of 100 ideas. So I think the biggest takeaway has also been that I should not wait for like one single most impactful way that I can begin. I should just begin, right? So not letting perfection be the enemy of taking action. So while I'm very sad as well that the course is now coming to an end, and I plan to think of ways in which I can stay connected with the community, I am also very excited to start taking action beyond the course now. So yeah, Terra has fundamentally changed my life, and I can keep going on about it, but I'll stop here now.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Manuel. Sorry, Aman. I see Manuel's hand as well. Do you want to come back in with more, Manuel?
Just a quick comment. That one of the things that I think has been more beneficial for me is having those live sessions. Where you're interacting with people. So I haven't completely gone through all the actual lessons. I've skimmed through some of them, and I know I can go back to them. But participating in the live sessions has been very, very useful. And another comment that I want to say is that I've actually been in a lot of sessions with Aman, and he takes the most amazing notes. So just as a side comment. So
yes, that's true. Thanks, Manuel, and thanks, Aman, for always sharing your notes after every session. It's very helpful.
Liam, I just and thank you so much, Manuel. And Liam, I just wanted to add one more thing, because I think it is super important. I loved the way the course is structured. Like the balance between asynchronous content and synchronous content is, I think, is the right mix. This is one of the best online courses I've had, because I know people, and I myself had like a doubt about how well can an online course really be. But I think this is the best online course that I've ever been a part of, because there's so much flexibility, right, of being able to watch content later on. If you are outside for some work, you can always come back and catch up on recordings later on as well. So I think just a mix between synchronous and asynchronous content is amazing.
That's great to hear. Thanks, Aman. I do always worry sometimes whether we've got the balance right, so that's good. Okay, again, thanks everybody. I want to turn it over to questions now. So any of our guests who are here, if you've got any thoughts, any worries, any questions, please feel free to either shout them out, or you can raise your hand or just come off mute or type them in the chat, whatever feels right. And if nobody has any questions, I'll think of some and answer them anyway. I can see David's come off mute, so we'll go to David first and then Tyler afterwards.
All right, first question. I might ask a longer one in a couple of minutes, but your 10 to 12 hours quote, is that inclusive? And I know it's an average, but is that inclusive of the asynchronous, live, and team meetings, perhaps at some point when you work on the project?
Yeah, it is. It's a rough estimate of everything you might spend time on, which includes a few hours of live events each week, a few hours of going through the classes, maybe an hour or so of just keeping in touch on our Slack workspace and reading what people are saying, and then a bit of time on assignments, not every week, but some weeks. So yeah, it varies. Some people who spend a long time on the classes might say they're spending 15 hours a week on it, and others who are just sort of skimming through and saying, oh yeah, I'm not so bothered about that class, I'm going to skip that one, or this class is really interesting, I'll take away some notes and come back to it, whatever they might be less. But yeah, it's inclusive of everything. Thanks, David. And Tyler, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, I did. So first off, thank all four of you. Thank you for making time to share your stories and talk about the course. Hearing everyone's story for how they become interested in solving climate change issues is always, I find, really inspiring. I think everybody has their own unique path for how they end up getting there. Sylvia, your story actually really resonated with me because I'm also a product manager in tech, but don't have the climate background. And so the way I've been thinking about it is, I know I have this set of skills and I know I really want to work on climate change issues. I just don't know where yet. There's a lot out there and it's hard to figure out where I can best fit in. So the question I have, I guess, for the group is, are there things about the course that you would change or you wish you had gotten more out of a certain area of it? Kind of like broad, curious to get everyone's thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Tyler, and I'm interested to hear what folks say. Just while Manuel, Aman, and Sylvia are thinking about that question, I'm going to answer Camille's question in the chat, which is how many times a year is the course offered? Currently, we run it every 12 weeks. So basically, and then we have a week or 2 weeks off in between with a bit of an intro to the following one. So every 14 weeks at the moment, but our plan is to start doing that in an overlapped way. So we'll have a cohort launching at the end of January, and another one we plan to launch in mid-March, so 8 weeks after the first. So there'll be 2 every quarter instead of 1 every quarter next year. So at the moment, the plan would be every 8 weeks. Maybe we'll go even more frequently than that if things go well. But at the moment, we can guarantee a start late January and mid-March is the current plan. Hope that helps, Camille. Back to Tyler's question. So what would you change or do differently when you take this course if you were to do it again? Let's go to Aman first, then Manuel.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of small things that I'd like to share. One of them is on the doubts part of it. I felt that part of it could be improved, where I didn't find like a very clear place where I could enter where all of us could sort of enter all our doubts. We could see the doubts that others have also placed, and all of those doubts get resolved essentially, maybe in a public manner as well, so that we don't have to maybe repeat our questions. So I think maybe doubts is one. And number 2 is, I think on the second half of the course, we started seeing a lot more links in the classes. And although the class mentions at the start that, hey, all the links are optional and you can watch them later, I think it still causes this FOMO, right? That, hey, it causes a guilt that you are not visiting a link just because it is mentioned in the class. So maybe parking all the optional links and releasing them all together towards the end of the course. That, hey, here's this separate set of 12 slides or like 20 slides with additional resources on each of these classes, right? So that yeah, that might have made it, that might make it easier, essentially, and just cover the essentials at the start and give all the optional ones towards the end. So yeah, maybe, and again, these are quite minor, but yeah, that is what I would like to share.
Thanks, Aman. That makes sense, and we are always kind of fighting with that FOMO challenge, that we want to offer so many things because people want different priorities. So we try and offer a lot, but then we know when you're offered a lot and you haven't got time to take it all, then then that FOMO comes in. So I totally agree. Yeah, thanks, Manuel.
So a couple of things also, I do like Aman's idea of the, both the questions and kind of like separating the content of the asynchronous courses. But my suggestion would be to think about elongating the course, because 3 months is really, it's a lot of information for 3 months. So I think that it would make sense to do it in 4 months. And I think that it would allow us to assimilate the information, a little bit better. And then the second suggestion would be to maybe just the labs, but if those can be extended to an hour and a half instead of 1 hour, I think that would also be useful, because 1 hour tends to go very quickly. Those would be my suggestions.
Absolutely. Thanks, Manuel. We are actually going to try that. So the next cohort that launches in January, we're going to try 1.5 hour labs instead of 1 hour. And the last 30 minutes is like maybe less critical parts, but a chance to carry on some of those conversations, because we recognize we're trying to squeeze a lot into that 1 hour a week. So thanks for that, Manuel. And again, on the length of the course, it actually started as 9 weeks. So when I took it myself early last year, it was 9 weeks, and it was very, very intense, although we've added a lot more in since then as well and expanded it to 12 weeks. But we're going to continue that conversation of what, maybe we should take some bits out, or maybe we should make it longer, 15, 16 weeks or whatever. So that often comes up. Yeah, thanks a lot. Sylvia.
Yeah, mine are pretty similar. I don't know if I have the solutions. I do have the problems. So I think I also struggle a lot like with time and FOMO. And I think like on my side personally, like during the 3 months, on the first 2 months, I was like doing my previous job, and at some point I was free. So I dedicated a lot more time and energy. And then on the second part, I actually like started a new job. So there was like all the rush around it. So I could definitely not dedicate it. So if I were to do it again, probably I would try to push it more to have more free time, because I think it's like something really valuable. And sometimes I don't know how feasible it is. Some weeks are just so messy that I just felt like, can I freeze this week and postpone it and get back to it like in a week? I know this is hard, but sometimes I just wish I could like, let's freeze this and get back to it in the future. Yeah, and then I totally like, it totally resonates that there's a lot of links that can create FOMO. But at the same time, I think it's useful to know that the links are there. And one thing, like we have access to the course and to the materials after it finished. So at least in my head is like, okay, what is in the slides is really like this foundational, that like these first principles that would like help you structure your mind. And then there's a lot of links you can go after, because people have a lot of different interests, which I think sometimes you can even have the opposite. Like for me, like more recently, I really wanted to understand more the intersection of crypto with climate. And there's not a session on that, but I can easily just ask people in the community, like anyone is looking at these, like which links can I use, which is really minor, but I know that I can get that information or in the slides or in the community. And that gives me a bit of peace of mind for the future, for all the links I didn't go through, which were a lot. I know I can come back to it and I know where they are. So maybe in 2 months, if I want to get into that, I just go to the course and check them out, which I think it's really good.
That's great. Thank you, Sylvia. And just one thing on that thing about all the links. So just to, I guess, explain where that comes from in a sense. So I didn't create the classes myself. I've had a hand in refreshing them and updating them, but Kamal, who's the course creator, wrote most of the classes, not all of them. And her goal was to kind of replicate a well-sourced news article almost, essentially. So when you're reading the class content, you're reading the story and you can get more or less everything you want from the class. But if there's something that you don't quite believe, or maybe you want to find out more about, then it's referenced. So the link takes you to the reference for that statement or that position or that argument. And I think it works really well for that purpose. But especially if you're a bit like me and you're like really interested in everything, then you're really tempted to click on every link. So I totally understand that challenge, but just setting out that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah,
like.
actually, just one thing I was thinking, like, I think it's really useful. You can go back to the course, but maybe it would be cool to have some quick search function, because right now, like, okay, if I want to go back to energy, these like specific wind solution, then I would need to find the class and then go through the slides and try to look for it. So if there could be a way like, okay, now I want to know about these, and I would immediately get the links or anything, could be like an interesting feature.
Yeah, thanks, Sylvia. As it happens, I just put together a kind of course index, just a document that lists all the different topics and where they are in the classes. So I will share that with everyone soon, so you can have like a quick reference. But even better would be a searchable thing, so we can work on that. Does that sort of help answer your question, Tyler? I don't know if you were asking, what could be better, or how would people interact differently with the course, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you for sharing, everybody.
Awesome, thanks. Manuel, did you want to say a bit more?
So I just wanted to share that in my case, and I think quite a few of us that are in the course are thinking of doing a career change. So actually having, Terra on your resume, is also something that, it's a signal that, in my case, I'm not, telling my boss or anything like that I'm looking for another job. So I don't want to put that out there. But at the same time, what I did is I put Terra on. So instead of having my MBA as my education on there, it just has my current job and it has Terra, on LinkedIn. So that's a signal. And then you get people, hey, congratulating you for the course or whatever. So that's just a signal. And I think that there's some value in it. And maybe not that many people have taken the course, but people within the climate space, I think, understand, the value of it. So that's just something I just wanted to add.
Thanks, Manuel, for that. That's really helpful. We have seen quite a few people who've said, having the Terra course on my CV, or being able to talk about some of the content I learned in the course in an interview, is what helped land me the job. So that's kind of a nice feeling for us, and I think it really does impact. Before we come back to you, Aman, I wanted to check if there were any other questions that people were kind of bursting to ask. Joshua.
Hey there. Good. I'm just on my phone and walking about, so only on audio at the moment. But thanks everyone. Also, it was really nice to hear all of your stories. I wanted to know, well, I kind of have two questions. The first one, I don't know if I have time for two, but the first one was more around like now, a lot of people mentioned like opportunities. They're thinking about Aman, you had loads of ideas. Sylvia, you've taken a new job. I wanted to know like more about what those were. And the second question was more around how you evaluate potential opportunities. So just the context, like I left my job a couple of months ago to try and focus on this stuff. Thinking about the Terra course, although I've had like 2 months of free time to like do all of my own research as well. So I have, I'm still like not quite decided yet. But yeah, like reaching out to lots of people, doing interviews, and it's quite a minefield to like understand like where I want to like dedicate my time and which opportunities to go for. So if anyone has any like frameworks or reflections or things around that, that would be super helpful as well.
Yeah, great question, Joshua. And it's something I think we tried to support the fellows through with different tools and techniques throughout the course, but maybe let's see, Sylvia, if you've got thoughts on that, and also maybe you can tell us more about the new job of yours, and then we'll go to Aman as well.
Yeah, so this is a great question. I could also speak for it like for 30 minutes, but so I'll try to keep it short. I'm currently working at Overstory, that it's a small startup that uses satellite and machine learning to identify vegetation on Earth. And that could be for different use cases or to avoid reforestation, or we're also focusing on helping energy companies avoid wildfires. So really bringing that data layer to nature-based solutions, which was something I was really interested in. And then like, how did I get there? So I think there's no perfect framework, and this is where I got to. I actually wrote a blog about it, so I will share with you in case you're interested. That what I realized was I struggle a lot, especially not coming from climate, to know which area to focus on, because first there was a lot and I didn't have previous experience, so it was hard for me to take in. So I did this first exercise of like thinking big and really divergent thinking of like all the possible things and learn about them, and kind of start picking up like the things that excite me the most, and try to do that more intuitively than to get like the perfect rationale, because like you're pretty new to the space, it's going to be hard for you to know exactly what you want to go after. So start picking up those clues, like, okay, I'm more like, for me was I'm more interested in like nature-based solutions. I want to stay in tech world. I want to get like a product role, try to get some tangible criteria. And as I get those criteria, start like focusing in and converge my search to that. So a bit like think big, and then really start small and focusing on specific things. And then at some point, it's just like, just go with it. Like if you're gonna look for perfection, you're not gonna get it. So like, at least for me, it was like, okay, I want to enter the climate world. I like this team, I like this company, I like their mission. So let's just do it, because like finding perfection is just a hard thing to do overall.
Yeah, great way to put that, Sylvia. And in fact, we talk about in the course a bit, we ask people to figure out what's their theory of change. You know, how do they see change happening, or action happening, and what's their part in it. And I don't know if anyone's come across the concept of ikigai and figuring out, well, like, what do I like doing? What am I good at? And what needs to happen? Like, what's the work that needs to happen? So we talk about that a little bit in the course as well. But I imagine you might have come across it already, Joshua. But anyway, I mentioned it.
Yeah, I have. Just quick follow-up, Sylvia. How's it going? You've been there for like a month. How is it living up to expectations you had?
Yeah, I need to spend a little time reflecting. So it's been like 1 month. It has been really good. So I really like the team and everyone. I think, like, to be honest, is as similar as starting any new job. So a lot of learning of like a new space, new type of customers, new team. So there's like a lot to take in, which also happens when you're starting something new in any other industry. So I think the challenges are the same. I think the thing is that you can make more connections with other things that I like outside work. So before I had my job at the tech company, and then outside I would read around climate, and they seem completely two different worlds. And now it's like, okay, I have my job, and everything I do outside or read or studying Terra, there's always a connection, even if it's not direct, but I do feel that they feed each other. But at the same time, just trying to take a little bit all the magic around it is just like starting any new job, which it also brings a little bit more normality to it than this like climate change world that is completely different from what I used to do, which is, in the end, it's not. It's just like a new thing and a new thing to learn that you are excited about.
Nice, thanks, Sylvia, and congratulations again on the new position.
Thanks.
Cool. So yeah, I'm conscious of the time and I don't want to keep people too long, but let's go to Aman, and just really briefly, Aman, what are some of those ideas that you talked about that you're thinking about doing next, and how did you get to that point from where you were before, where you're sort of swimming in ideas? What was that process for you?
Yeah, I think when we're talking about frameworks, I think all the assignments helped me personally really a lot, because they have been structured in this way. Like the first assignment is about thinking about the future, what do you envision, right? And then sort of the next assignment is sort of trying to work backwards, what can you do now, and why are you really here, right? And finally ending up with what is your personal climate action plan. So I think the framework has been provided through the assignments itself, because they force us to think about what we want to do and how can we achieve that. So I think that answers the second part of it. And on what are the things that I want to do, I think number one is that most of the content that is existing currently around climate change is, I feel it is very focused on the West, but I think it needs to be contextualized at least to make it seem relevant for people in where I live, right? Because it seems too far right now that, hey, it's their problem or it's happening there. So I think the content needs to be much more localized, and local communities have to be empowered, right? So one of the things I want to do is eventually translating a lot of the content of what I have learned to make it specific to India or the context that I live in. So that is number one. Number two is sort of holding spaces. It sort of builds upon this idea. So as part of an assignment, we had to conduct a survey of how people in my community feel. And I learned a lot about, oh, my community actually cares about it. So I think just holding those spaces where people can come and share about their feelings, their fears, their anxiety, and also their hopes and what keeps them going needs to happen much more. Like whatever I got through Terra, I think it needs to happen at a much more decentralized pace. Next is sort of using my skills from data and machine learning and all of that to sort of create tools where, say, governments at different level can understand what is happening, for example, with pollution. So for example, with waste, right? So how can we use data and say satellite imagery to sort of create this heat map of waste aggregated at different levels, right, from district to state to country, and sort of use that to inform policy on where they should direct their efforts. And I can keep going on, but for the sake of time, I'll sort of stop there. Yeah.
Thanks, Aman. That's great. So 5 minutes left if we need it. What else is on people's minds? David.
Well, okay, so my questions in a short version would be, is there a syllabus? Which maybe there's not, but the equivalent of that. But let me explain why I'm asking. I think I'm sold conceptually on what's available with Terra, but I'm tempted to go directly to one of the more focused, I don't know if they're all 12 weeks, but one of the more focused ones. And just explain why I've been having whatever spare time I have and sticking my nose in some of the solution areas. So, and in fact, did a certificate with Stanford covering the energy space. Well, they cover quite a bit of the economics of the energy space as well. So that, and also my personal time has also been the last year in part of an angel group. So I'm also interested in attracting capital to the solution space, if you will. So I'm tempted to go right to like your VC, even though I'm not necessarily a venture capitalist, right? I'm tempted to go right to that because at least on some like transportation, energy, grid, I have a fair amount of knowledge, but I don't know what I don't know on the other things you might cover. Right. So tell me why I should still take the intro 12-week or not. Is there a syllabus, anything like that?
Yeah, great question, David. So there is definitely a syllabus. I think on the course site, somewhere in there, there's a section where you can pop in your email and you get it by email. And before we log off, I'll see if I can get the link as well and just share it here. But obviously completely up to you, and we'd love to see you on either of those courses. But one thing I would say is that I've heard from quite a few people who've gone through the course who come in with like a reasonably good feeling of like, this is where I'm starting to focus my energy. This is what I'm most interested in. And so they come in at that point and they've got a vague idea of where they're going. And they get to the end and they come out with this much wider view, which they feel really pleased to have recognized. Actually, I didn't figure out how all of these things fit together before, and I hadn't quite appreciated the value of climate justice and equity, and I hadn't quite appreciated the political implications of all of these things. And now I've got that wider picture, and my perspective is significantly different. Maybe I'm still going for that same goal, but I'm coming at it from a different angle. So I can only say that that's what people have told me. And I think for me as well, that's what motivates me to run this course, is people come in and they always come out with a wider understanding or a more systemic view of this problem. So I would say the 12-week like crash course is the right one. But of course, if you're like reasonably confident you know where you're going and there's not much that's going to change your mind and you're really interested in that VC course, then of course that's the right one for you. But I'll make sure you get the syllabus as well so you can have a look. Sylvia, was your hand up after from last time?
I can just add to that. And of course, this is very personal opinion. I totally get that if you know exactly what you're going after and you really want to specialize, there's value in that. And because I'm a generalist, I will always have this system thinking as something like really attractive, and the importance of starting with first principles. And I think this is what Terra gives you. It just gives you that foundation. And of course, you're not going to get a like specialist in energy. For sure, this is not the best one if you're looking for that, but it just allows you to relate energy to the climate problem, to the science, to other solutions. Like for me, I'm working like with satellite and nature-based solutions, but I'm like, some of my customers are energy companies, so I can easily relate nature-based solutions with the energy challenge and correlate the both now. So I think this is what the benefit of this system perspective is, that like in the end, if you need to evaluate other solutions or tell people where your energy solution is better to invest than in other type of solutions, you would have that rationale, and that's useful for the future. And I would imagine in the VC world too.
Thanks a lot, Sylvia. I guess the only other thing to consider is you'll meet a lot more people and a lot more variety of people in the 12-week course. The VC course is really quite specific to VCs. It tends to be very US focused as well. And it is shorter. I think it's 6 or 8 weeks. So again, it does depend on what your goals are, but that's another comparison. Yeah.
If I was crazy enough to try them concurrently, is that a good idea, bad idea, not allowed?
It's perfectly allowed. If you've got the time, then it could be a very efficient and effective way of doing things. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, because patience is not a virtue of mine. I'm like, well, I want to get to those stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair
Thank you.
enough.
Thank you for all the feedback.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the questions, David. Right, I'm conscious we're at the hour, and I have to rush to another thing. So just again, thanks everybody for coming and listening. Thanks very much, Sylvia, Aman, and Manuel, for offering your thoughts. And I hope we got through everyone's questions. If anyone has leftover questions, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat there. And I'll be happy to field them. Thanks again, and I hope we see you on a course.
Thank you so much. See ya.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.